was wondering if he was going to have to do Kol Nidre with the mask on, or speakers are going to have to speak with their mask on.
I would have asked Nadine about it.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think the speakers are off.
Good morning. Oh, great.
Great.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Could you please take your seats, and we're going to start our high holidays. Thank you. Okay. It's great to see so many new and familiar faces. Welcome to Machar reunion as we begin high holiday observance for the year 5783. On behalf of Machar board and staff, I wish you all a sweet, healthy, safe, joyful, and happy New Year. Shana Tova. Thank you. And how about a Gita Yontov or a Gita Yur, the sweet Yiddish words that many of us used to hear from our parents and grandparents. On this beautiful day, as we gather to celebrate a new year and new beginnings, we're keeping in mind people who are struggling all through the world, standing with people of Ukraine and wishing Ukrainian Jews a happy and peaceful new year. I'd like to say Happy New Year out loud in Ukrainian, which I hadn't used for many years. Z Novim Rokom, and wishing Ukrainian people war no more. Бажаю вам мирного року і щоб не було війни. I was born in Kyiv, Ukraine, and this war hit right home. It felt like bombs were exploding in my childhood memories. Just to let everyone know that we're thinking about Ukrainian people, and we will have, I will be part of a panel discussion, Machar panel discussion, will be one of the adult education, and the date will be announced soon, and please keep an eye on weekly updates that Tara puts on every week, and that will keep you up to date with all the events and things that are happening in Machar. As many of you know, Machar is a member of Society for Humanistic Judaism, SHJ. I recently realized that not everyone knows that SHJ has 30-member congregation like Machar, all through United States, 2 in Canada, and some in Israel. That's a pretty big organization, and I feel fortunate that we are part of something bigger than just us. We, as Machar, we look forward to growing and strengthening our Machar community and spread the word about secular humanistic Judaism. This summer, we hired a professional graphic designer, Raya Kreidel, Jeremy's wife, and with Raya's help, we modernized our logo and have been using it to spread the word about Machar and JCS by advertising on social media, Facebook and Instagram, using newly redesigned logo, and it is now on Machar website, banner, table runner, and printed brochures. And there is still more work to be done. So I'd like to talk about a little bit about safety and security on high holidays as we are in Cedar Lane Unitarian Church. Like many congregations, Machar has renewed its arrangement with an off-duty law enforcement officer from Montgomery County, and you may have noticed the officer in the police cruiser station in the parking lot at the church, and his role is simply to be visible and available should any assistance be needed. And in unlikely situation, if emergency occurs, please follow all the exit signs. For security purposes, Cedar Lane closed all of the entrances to the church and left only one open for registration and entry to the building. So everybody who came in were registered and known to us. but there's many exits, like one of them is here, and all through the building, all the exit, you can exit, but you cannot come in. So hopefully we don't have to use them, but it is what it is. Again, Shana Tova, and now I would like to introduce our Rabbi Jeremy Kreidel, who is also a Jewish Cultural School Director, and substitute teacher is needed, and many, many other hats that he's wearing and guiding us through the school year and through all the activities. Jeremy.
Shana Tova, everyone. So, as you notice, if you've been with us before in person, these cameras haven't been here before. We're being joined by folks online, so this service is streaming. So, take that into account with what you decide to do or not do on camera. You've been warned. We start this new year with the hope that just as more of us were able to be together last year than the year before, and this year more than the last, that we'll be able to be together again in the coming year too. In order to keep those of us who are here in person safe and healthy, if you are with us today in person, please do remember to wear your mask. It's not that I don't want to see your smiling faces, it's just that I'd rather see them outside where the air can dissipate all of our aerosols. We talk a lot about aerosols now that we didn't. It used to just be Lysol was an aerosol. So we have members of our choir here today leading our singing with Harry Appleman providing accompaniment. And we have a number of readers. And before we continue, for those who are in person today, look, I can't control what you're doing at home. I know you're not going to turn your phone off because I'm not crazy, I get that. But if you could at least silence your phone so that you and the people with you can be present, that would be great. As well, see, and now they're checking, because it's always a thing. As well, for those who are here in person, the lyrics to the songs are in the back of the book behind a tab. It's like a little hymnal tab. So as we get to a song, I'll tell you what number the song is. The songs are numbered. There's sheet music back there as well as lyrics. So if you choose to use those, you can. There's a little bit of flipping back and forth, but it also means we can add music without reprinting the whole book. We're here in community, but many of us actually don't know one another. So if you're here in person and you're comfortable doing so, just take a moment to greet those around you. Don't take your mask off. It may turn out, because of the mask, that you're sitting next to somebody you know, but you don't know that you know the person because, when's the last time you just saw that? So go ahead and take a moment to greet those around you, just in case you don't know them. And you'll notice that the choir members didn't introduce each other to themselves because I think they might be sick of one another at this point. No? Oh, okay. They're not. That's great. A final note before we begin in earnest. The high holidays have at their core a deep tension. There's joy in the new year, the difficulty that comes with addressing our own faults and restoring damaged relationships. We're doing this today either online and perhaps alone, or in this large room with a lot of people, and it's not a 10-minute process, which means you're going to get distracted. There's a meme going around with Bart Simpson writing on the board, "I will not see how many pages are left in the book. I will not see how many pages are left in the book." We don't even have that many pages, so you're going to be disappointed if you flip to the back and discover, oh, that's Yom Kippur. I'm going to be here till then. So distraction is normal. The world gnaws at our limited attention spans and everyday worries come to mind. And there's always that question, how many pages? Distraction's actually okay. So when thoughts pop into your head, as you read or sing or don't sing, or however it is you choose to participate, the thoughts that make you lose your place are okay, and they're probably thoughts you need to have. Which is to say, don't feel good. There's enough guilt for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Don't feel guilty about being distracted by the pages and all of that stuff. You need to have whatever that thought is. So get distracted if you need to. Mark the thought. Rejoin us when you're ready. We'll still be here when you get back. Hopefully. A quick mention for those who haven't been to the building before. We didn't mention this earlier. If you're looking for restrooms, there's that hallway behind us. Restrooms are at the end of that hallway, just because you need that stuff sometimes. They call them bio breaks now. Yeah, I don't like it either, but that's what they call them. So we have 4 readers today, and I'd like to invite up our first reader, Tatiana Aras. And so Tatiana will be over at that podium. And because we're starting, we're on page 1, on the Rosh Hashanah section, just to be clear. Welcome and Happy New Year, Shana Tova. We have come together as family and friends, as congregation members and visitors, as people of diverse heritages to join others throughout the world in celebrating Rosh Hashanah, New Year's Day in the Hebrew calendar, and the anniversary of the world's creation, according to the Talmud. All of us are here today because of our connection to the Jewish people through birth, choice, or association. As the first day of the Jewish year, Rosh Hashanah marks a turning point of hope between what was and what will be, between what is and what ought to be. We share with many a humanism that draws us together here in our common quest for moral self-assessment and self-correction. As one year ends and another begins, we gather to each reflect upon our words and deeds, and to renew our commitments and efforts to improve ourselves and our world to fulfill our human potential. And together in the middle of the page, we are here together today to celebrate another year of life and reflect on the year that is ending, on our milestones and our mistakes, our joys and our sorrows, on the lessons learned and the challenges and questions still to be faced. So we begin by singing a song wishing peace and well-being to one another, Havenu Shalom Aleichem. It is the very first one in your hymnal section, so just look for number 1. Havenu Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom Aleichem, Havenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. In most other festivals, the spirit is one of joy, yet Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are imbued with a seriousness born of the sense of responsibility that each of us bears for our own life and ethical choices. These days are also different in that they're not nature festivals, nor do they commemorate an historical event. Rather, they are observed respectively as the ceremonial beginning and ending points for a period of intensive reflection when we each confront the negative consequences of our mistakes and misdeeds as we strive to make amends and turn a new page in our lives. Together on the top of page 2, let us support, challenge, and help empower one another to foster such improvement.
Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year's Day, but in contrast with the New Year's of other peoples, it is greeted with solemnity as well as revelry. As we begin our ceremony, we light these festival and Sabbath candles to illuminate our self-examination, and to express our hopes for the future.
It's always worth remembering that in the Torah, Rosh Hashanah is actually described as a Shabbat. So these are Shabbat candles, technically. Nivarech et ha'or ba'olam, nivarech et ha'or ba'adam, nivarech et ha'or ba'yom tov. Together, let us bless the light in the world. Let us bless the light in humanity. Let us bless the light of this holiday.
Just as candles radiate warmth and illumination, so too may we. Just as our forebears kindled such flames for themselves and us, so too may we shine our lights for the present generations and those yet to come.
And please join with our choir as we sing Eifo Ori, which is number 2 in your hymnal section. Since ancient times, Jews have gathered together on this day, lit ceremonial fires, sang and recited liturgy, celebrated the new year, and reflected on their lives.
Today we remember all the times we came together during the year with family and friends to light candles and sing. Together we remember times of joy and sorrow. Together we contemplate how to live better lives. Together, we renew our covenant, our commitment to shared ideals.
Together, these memories of the past and ideals of a better future help shape and give meaning to our lives. These memories and ideals link us with our forebears and heritage, and, we hope, with generations to come. As we reflect on our good fortune to begin another year of life, let us say a Shehecheyanu, a celebration of the new, the rare, and the wonderful. Nivarech kol dor vador, shehecheyanu, vekiyamanu, vehigianu lazman hazeh. Together, let us bless the goodness which we have encountered in the world, which has kept us alive and sustained us and brought us to this moment.
Let us celebrate this Rosh Hashanah, this head of the new year, by being mindful of how we help create the world in which we live. Let us begin this new year like cleansing our hands and our hearts, by correcting our mistakes and making amends to those we have hurt.
Let us value this day of celebration and reflection by striving to put our hearts into all we do today and every day. Let us inaugurate this new year by being truly present and engaged, by reaching out to others, by lending a hand. Let us fill this new year with healing and growth, with joy and insight, with our efforts for the advancement of freedom, equity, and peace. If you are able, please rise, and we will sing our humanistic Shema with a traditional melody. Shema Yisrael, im kol shonutenu, kol ha'adam echad, kulanu na'avod, letaken et ha'olam hazeh, together, hear, O Israel, with all our diversity, all humanity is one. Let us all work to improve this world. You may be seated.
Let us encounter all the world with appreciative and insightful love, deep and healing love, liberating and joyful love. Let us rejoice in love and in the fertility it brings to the human experience.
Love expands our abilities to explore and express ourselves. Love deepens our feelings of connectedness and individuality. Love helps us reach across the boundaries of ego, class, creed, ethnicity, and nation. Love heightens our senses of meaning, beauty, and wonder. Let us love all the world with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our might.
And these words will be upon the heart always. Let us learn them by heart with our children, and let us speak them often, as we sit in our homes and walk along the way, as we lie down and rise up.
Let us attach them as a sign to guide our minds and our hands. Let us write them on mezuzot in our home as lessons. Let us make our every deed a labor of love. Let it be words of love that we speak and live by, not words of gossip, ill will, or cruelty, not words of lashon hara, the evil tongue. And before we turn to our Amidah, the choir will lead us in Hine Matov, starting, it's the number 4 item in your hymnal section. We are now on the bottom of page 5 for the Amidah. So Amidah just means standing, but is the name more newly given for what the rabbis called Hatzafilah, the prayer, because it encompassed all the things that you might ask for of somebody that you might think was listening, and was there to replace sacrifices that happened at the temple. It's a long process. We won't get into it. It eventually kind of produced what we have today. Since the temple stood in Jerusalem, Jews in a standing position, Amidah, have idealized qualities that they attributed to their ancestors and deity. If you're able, please stand now to proclaim our shared ideals and our will to act upon them. Together, let us remember those who have come before us, who have given us life, love, and our culture. Such is our Zikaron Chazdei Imot Va'avot, our remembrance of the kindness and merits of our mothers and fathers. Let us work together in mutual aid to benefit all. May we thus advance mutuality, Gemilut Chasadim, our best response to being parts of a vast and interdependent world. Let us be thankful for all that sustains us, for all that gives us contentment and joy, compassion and understanding. May our efforts help bring such well-being to all who live on earth. Let us work for peace, shalom, in our relationships, our communities, and our world. Let us recognize and celebrate our differences to better live together on this one planet. Let us work to heal the sick and sustain health, to give to the weary strength and life renewed, to support those who have fallen, to uplift those bowed down, to free those in bondage, to abolish both greed and poverty, to repair and improve the world. Hava na'avod l'rapeh cholim u'lechalkel briut, latet layayef koach v'chaim mechudeshet, lismoch noflim, lezokef kefufim, lehatir asurim, levatel gam betza v'gam oni, letaken et ha'olam. You may be seated. I'd like to thank Tatiana for reading the first section of our service and call up Joey Barr to lead our second section, our Rosh Hashanah additions. As we move into the Rosh Hashanah additions to our Amidah, which are really the core of our service today, it's worth taking a moment to ask this question. What are you doing here? Now everybody leaves, right? I didn't mean what is Rosh Hashanah all about or why did you come here today? Not exactly. What I mean is this. Why do this? Why sit with books in our hands, reading or singing words written by more than a dozen people, only a very small number of whom are in this room? For some of us, part of the answer is because this is what we do. This is what Judaism has used as the primary form of marking its own new year for centuries. People come into a room, there's books, you read from the books, you sing from the books, you have apples and honey cake, and you go home. Or maybe you stop for lunch on the way, right? And you might have had something to, a big dinner the night before, because nobody goes to shul the night before, right? Okay. So for some of us, that's part of the answer. It's just, this is what we've done. This is what Judaism has used. We do it this way because around 1900 years ago, after the destruction of the Second Temple, a group of rabbis who more or less appointed themselves as new leaders of the Jewish people, rabbis have a tendency to do that. Just, I'm in charge now. I'm not in charge, by the way. Decided that words could substitute for the sacrifices of wealth and food that came before. They traded the sacrifice of one set of resources, what was the material wealth of their time, for another, time and effort and thought. This is the tradition that ultimately we have inherited. And so if you want the historical answer to why you're here, that was it. But that's not what we're doing. It's not why we're here personally today. It's just what we're doing right now. Why do it like this? Why has this way of doing it stuck? Because language matters. We say what we say because language matters. Salman Rushdie wrote in the Satanic Verses, language is courage, the ability to conceive a thought, to speak it, and by doing so to make it true. The challenge with anything like today's service is that we don't necessarily agree with everything we're about to say. Or we might not like how we're saying it, or how we're singing it, or whatever. But the purpose of what we read and say today isn't actually total agreement. It's to make us remember, in the words of Solomon Brager, that art cannot open borders, it can't abolish apartheid or end ethno-nationalism and complicity with state violence. But it can contribute to the building of a counter-narrative, to the construction of a different path, a different place to turn toward. And so as we begin the Jewish New Year, that's our task, building a different path and turning toward a different place, one better than the place we're bidding farewell as 5782 becomes 5783. And so we're on the top of page 7 for the start of the Rosh Hashanah additions, Unatana Tokef. Rosh Hashanah heightens our awareness that each human action or inaction may have significance in what Jewish lore and liturgy call the Book of Life, Sefer HaChaim, of which we are all together both authors and subjects. This mythic book is thus comprised of the totality of our human experience.
This Book of Life is imagined to be our collective record of all of our deeds, from best to worst and those in between. We celebrate all that are laudable, and we feel regret and anxiety over our mistakes and misdeeds. We fear that their consequences may haunt and shadow us, blocking our way to the better future we desire.
Unatana tokef kedushat hayom ki hu nora va'ayom. Let us acknowledge the distinct power of this day, for it is one of awe and angst. Together, let us acknowledge the distinct power of this day to remind us that all human beings are together co-authors of the Book of Life.
Yet, while we will all miss the mark, go astray, often harming others and ourselves, we all are also able to make substantive change to counter the negative outcomes of our own mistakes and misdeeds.
Let us begin the new year by each listening to the still, small voice of conscience within us. Uvashofar gadol yitaka, v'kol damama daka yishama. The great shofar will be sounded. The still, small voice will be heard. Having heard the call of conscience, let us engage in moral renewal. At Rosh Hashanah, we are mindful of how we each may engage ourselves in turning new pages in a book of life, compiling humanity's good works. Jewish tradition, as summed up by the stark poetry of the Unatana Tokef, prescribes 3 ways of countering the negative consequences of our deeds: teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah.
Teshuvah here means answering for our wrongs, taking responsibility for them, and returning to the right path to reach our moral goals.
Let us turn from wrong and do good, seek peace and pursue it. Let us take responsibility for our lives and make teshuvah. Let us make paths that help us reach our moral goals.
Tefillah is commonly translated as prayer, yet it is also related to words for hope, imagination, seeking, examination, thought, decision, and judgment. Humanists may therefore interpret and value tefillah as self-examination, introspection, soul-searching, as well as moral reckoning and accountability, all of which in Hebrew can also be called cheshbon hanefesh.
May our introspections help us renew our hopes for the improvement of ourselves and our world. May our words of reflection today be the seeds of our deeds in the year ahead. Tzedakah is generous and magnanimous moral action for justice. Often translated as charity, tzedakah includes and transcends philanthropy. Tzedakah at its best creates empowerment, cooperation, and equality. May we give generously of ourselves and our wherewithal to help bring about the better world of which we dream. May we do what is right and just.
Let justice roll forth like waters, and tzedakah, moral action, like a stream ever flowing.
Yigal kamayim mishpat, utzdaka kanachal etan. May our ideals and hopes guide and inspire our actions in the year ahead.
Let us
Commit ourselves to such deeds in this world and every day. Let us all thus dedicated and appreciated, devoted and acknowledged. Nihya kulanu kadosh ukdosha, kadoshim ukdoshot. Let us encounter each person as a precious presence, a sublime jewel of life. Let us thus see and feel, hear and smell, taste and celebrate the beauty of this world. All the earth is full of merit and splendor, all beings full of worth and wonder. Melo kol haaretz kavod.
And thus, may we help all of humanity to become one fellowship with a heart at peace.
Uvechein na'azor kol anashut lichyot aguda achat v'levav shalem.
And thus, let us encourage hope and let us work for the end of tyranny and for the growth of liberty and justice.
Uvechein na'ametz tikva v'na'avod lasof shel memshelet zadon ulegidul cherut utzdaka. Thus, let us renew our vision, our commitments, and our efforts for the improvement of the world, for tikkun olam. Let us recognize our shortcomings and our potentials, find contentment and joy in life as we work to live up to our ideals.
As we begin this new year, let us appreciate all the goodness that we experience and create in this world. And let us work together to save this world for future generations.
The moon is dark tonight, a new moon for a new year. It is hollow and hungers to be full. It is the black zero of beginning.
Now you must void yourself of injuries, insults, incursions. Go with empty hands to those you have hurt and make amends.
It is not too late. It is early and about to grow. Now is the time to do what you know you must and have feared to begin. Your face is dark, too, as you turn inward to face yourself, the hidden twin of all you must grow to be.
Forgive the dead year. Forgive yourself. What will be once to push through your fingers? The light you seek hides in your belly.
The light you crave longs to stream from your eyes. You are the new that will wax in new goodness. Thank you, Joey, for reading the second part of our service. I'd like to call up Liz Pomper to be our third reader. And for those who got distracted and were looking at the end of the book and when are we done, we're on page 11. For those online, I haven't announced a book page in a while, we're on page 11. Humanity has long cherished enduring ideals of a just order, transcending the misrule of tyrants and the sorrows that flow from our own misjudgment and misdirection.
Rosh Hashanah is also called Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment. We gather to observe this day as one dedicated to human self-examination, self-judgment, and self-correction. We make this season one of moral renewal as we begin the new year together, by each of us acting as the author of our own becoming and inscribing our hopefully ever-improving selves into a metaphorical book of life.
Aleinu, it is upon us, it is our responsibility, together to cultivate and sustain progress in this world, using our evolving capacities for human self-determination and harmony. We here are connected with the peoples of all other lands, all the families of the earth. Our lot is the same as theirs. Thus we must stand together for equality, liberty, and peace. The highest value is in the breath of life. Nothing is more precious.
Man's plight would indeed be sad if he had to be kept in order through fear of punishment and hope of reward after death.
Man must break his fetters, which have chained him to the gates of heaven and hell, so that he can begin to fashion out of his reawakened and illumined consciousness a new world upon the earth. So we're going to pause here as a congregation, and I'm going to invite David Abramson up as our speaker for today.
This is going to be short and sweet. I was going to talk about how busy I feel, how the internet, social media, the things that my phone and laptop make available to me, that they're stealing my life. I was asked today to speak about the coping with having too much to do, being overburdened. I was going to talk about how I cope with never having the opportunity to be bored, to not be entertained at any moment. And I was going to talk about how a friend just told me that yesterday, that elementary school age kids, many of them ages 6 to 10, are saying things like, "I'm really stressed." Why are they saying that? Are they stressed? Are they imitating the language of adults that they hear? Are they more stressed than I was as a kid? Because I didn't say that. Are they just more adept at and comfortable using language that expresses emotions and mental states? I don't know the answers to these, but it is something to be noted. If they are stressed, is it for similar reasons to my own? I was going to talk about how brains need downtime, time to be bored, not to be returning to my phone every time there's a lull in conversation, a bus ride, and a dinging sound. And I was going to talk about how for the past 2 to 3 years, I have largely sworn off reading internet news on electronic devices on Saturdays. It's not a Shabbat thing. It's because I feel better about myself if I haven't frittered away the entire weekend scrolling through news feeds and polling averages. There's so much going on in the world, it could suck my weekend away. And it has. The weekend that is supposed to be for recharging, relaxing, enjoyment, but instead is threatened by my daily life's concerns about what's happening in our country and society. Trump and Trumpism, hate and disinformation, and what's happening to the world. For example, Russia's war against Ukraine, the focus of my work life for the past nearly 12 months. Instead of all that, having just talked about that, I want to reflect for a minute on maybe why we're even here talking about coping with overload today. It's not just the technology, although when I think about what the biggest societal changes that have affected my daily life have been over more than half a century, it's the advent of computers, cell phones, and the internet. Not changes that affect transportation, housework, my job, etc., in ways that save time. Those truly time-saving devices were invented before my life. The new ones are changes that seem to steal time. But these changes are also happening at a time when the world order, in the international relations sense, is changing. 30 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, when too many people took the triumph of democracy and various freedoms for granted and stopped believing they are things that need to be constantly nurtured and fought for. Yale historian of Ukraine, Timothy Snyder, of whom I'm a great fan, wrote in the recent issue of Foreign Affairs, "Every revival of democracy, including the American one of 1776, has depended on ethical assertions, not that democracy was bound to exist, but that it should exist, as an expression of rebellious ethical commitment against the ubiquitous gravitational forces of oligarchy and empire." And Snyder adds, that is, everyone except for the current post-Cold War revival of democracy. Late 20th century talk of democracy replaced the idea that democracy is something that should exist with the idea that it is inevitable. For example, Francis Fukuyama's book, The End of History, about how the West model triumphed for good. Not just for good, but permanently. This misplaced assumption, this, quote, misunderstanding that made democracies vulnerable, unquote. So maybe the sense of overload is a result of succumbing to the fear that the good things in our lives, society, and world, as we've known them, are over, and all we can do is watch on our phones as it all slips away. When we do look at our phones for news and commentary, I suggest that to skip the clickbait, the stuff that manipulates our emotions, whose primary purpose is to rile us up. Look for what also offers solutions, that emphasizes the weaknesses in the bad and the evil things that scare us. Because it is this fear that leads us to keep looking for things that leads to this sense of overload, I posit. And maybe recognizing this and focusing on what we can do about it, tikkun olam, for example, is how to cope with that overload. So with that, I wish you all a Happy New Year and Lashana Tova.
Thank you, David. We are on the top of page 12 for the part that you, maybe if you're here for something, you're really here for this, the shofar. And I'd like to now invite up our shofar blowers, Mike Zamor and Miriam Markowitz, and ask them to pick a microphone. We're blowing shofars into microphones so that the folks who are online get a chance to hear the shofar with somebody more skilled than I blowing it. And yeah, they have to take their masks off for this, right? Let us now listen to the voice of the shofar. Hava nishma kol shofar. Aleinu. It is upon us. It is our responsibility to strive to live up to these values. In each of us may our conscience, enlightened judgment, and commitment be aroused by the shofar's sustained blast of Tekiah. By the broken notes of Shevarim. By the staccato alarm of Teruah. And by yet another blast of Tekiah. Stay there. Stay where you are. You're not done yet.
Today is also called Yom HaZikaron, the Day of Remembrance. Since antiquity, this day has been a time for Jews and any who sojourn among them to remember both what is and what ought to be, both the real and the ideal, both their own words and deeds, good and bad, and the moral covenant in which they cooperate for the improvement of the world, Tikkun Ha'olam. Such remembering drives our moral reckoning as we feel the vast gap between our vision of what we should do and what we have actually done.
Today and every day, let us remember and act upon our human solidarity, compassion, and ideals that constitute our covenant for a better world. May the shofar awaken us to be ever mindful of our expansive covenant, which reaches from our forebears to us and on to the many generations yet born. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah.
Rosh Hashanah is also called Yom Teruah, the Day of Sounding, the day of sounding out the shofar. The primal blasts of the ram's horn trumpet have for thousands of years proclaimed the cycles of the years and months, the inaugurations of war and peace, new rulers, decrees, and freedoms, as well as calls to conscience, hope, and action. Today, the shofar can still help move us if we but choose to be so moved.
In the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you will have a day of rest dedicated to the remembrance of your deeds with the sounding of the shofar, a special assembly. Sound on the new moon the shofar, on the full moon of our festival day. Like the thunder on the mountain, let the shofar sound. Like strings and drums, reeds and cymbals, let us hear the music of its call. Tekiah. Shevarim. Tekiah. Our shofar blowers will be back. So we are on the bottom of page 13, and we're going to join together in Tzrichim Anachnu. So Tzrichim Anachnu is, if you know Avinu Malkeinu's melody, it's the same melody. There's a really long history of these kinds of poems, like Avinu Malkeinu and Tzrichim Anachnu, where the cantor used to actually make them up himself, because we're talking 1,000 years ago. and perform them. The ones that were very good, 40,000 odd of these things were written. The ones that were very good stuck with us, and Avinu Malkeinu is the one that has really stuck the most because of its melody. You know, if Barbra Streisand can make something popular, it's a pretty good song, right? So we have our variation on that, Tzrichim Anachnu. It's number 6. We're on the bottom of page 13.
We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud.
How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy.
Only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot already be hastening into the sea of non-being.
Not yet. Not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended. Too much hurt that we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle.
So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud.
Thank you, Liz, for being our third reader. Before we move on from this section, in prior years, we've done long talks during our high holiday services, and this year our talks are shorter to save a little bit of time, to minimize aerosol exposure, because COVID is still here no matter what a press conference says. David Abramson talked about dealing with overload, and I'm grateful that he shared his insights because it's a good reminder that I don't have to respond to my phone all the time and maybe shouldn't so much, and maybe should do a little bit more about the world around me. Overload looks different for each of us. And Friday, I got a big dose of overload. Overload registering for rabbis right before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur has to be a big thing to cause more overload. It wasn't overload on work or on demands. It was emotional overload, the kind that adds nothing to our to-do lists, but nevertheless can literally be breathtaking. It came bundled in the form of the annual High Holidays greeting email sent out by the Jewish Federations of North America. I'm occasionally going to call it JFNA because that's its initials. JFNA and our local federations do a lot of good work. You can donate to the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington, and that money can go directly to serving Jewish communities in Ukraine. They do a lot of good work. Social services agencies, all of that, and I know that. But this email, this is a thing. So before I tell you what they had to say, I want to give you a reminder, because I assume not everybody just reads Pew surveys for fun. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't do math. But a reminder, the most recent Pew study of American Jews indicates that only 26% of American Jews believe in the God of the Bible. 50% believe in a higher power or spiritual force of some kind. 22% of American Jews believe in no higher power at all. If you're doing the math on that, yes, there's another 2%. They're undecided, which seems the most Jewish position to me. But knowing that about us, the air got knocked clean out of me when I read this message from JFNA. The letter mentioned a number of names used for the Jewish community writ large. The Jewish community, Am Yisrael, the Jewish people. And then it mentioned one that we don't use as much these days, and you'll understand why. They mentioned the term Amcha. Amcha is used a little more liberally in Orthodox circles, and sometimes among liberal rabbis, and you'll hear somebody say, oh, I went to such and such a place and there was an Amcha there. Amcha means a Jew. But it's not so common anymore because of what it actually means. Amcha means your people. Who's the you? It's the God of the Bible in whom 3/4 of American Jews don't believe. This was not an incidental use of Amcha in JFNA's email. The letter went on to talk to the God of the Bible at length as a way of summarizing what the Jewish Federations of North America had accomplished and experienced over the last year. You've seen these donor emails before. In the past year, we have. In the past year, we have. Thanks to your donations, we have. 3 paragraphs in a row started, God, your Amcha has experienced. 3 paragraphs in a row directly addressing the God of the Bible in whom 1/4 of American Jews don't believe, for sure, because they told us, and another 50% are iffy on. Amcha was used 7 times. And it was breathtaking in the most literal sense. At a moment when more and more Jews of all sorts are calling for more inclusiveness, JFNA demonstrated less. And I still haven't figured out exactly how to respond to this because I'm still overwhelmed by the idea that you would exclude at least 1/4 of your donors. But it's more important than ever, it seems, that humanistic Jews and humanistic Judaism make themselves known in the broader Jewish community because clearly our major Jewish institutions haven't figured out whom they serve and from whom they seek support. Change starts with us. For many years, Machar's name has been Machar, the Washington Congregation for Secular Humanistic Judaism, and we recently made a change and call ourselves Machar, the Secular Humanistic Jewish Congregation of Greater Washington, which seems academic, except we were bearing the lead. There's lots of synagogues in Washington. There's one congregation that directly identifies with humanistic Judaism as a movement and is connected with its institutions, and that's Machar. To be clear, humanistic Judaism doesn't presume atheism. Our movement's founder, Rabbi Sherwin Wein, was called an atheist but never took the name for himself. And humanistic Judaism doesn't presume any particular belief or disbelief theologically. What humanistic Judaism does presume is that we in this room, we in our neighborhoods and schools and workplaces, our communities, we in this nation and world, we are what we can be sure of. We are what we can count on. We are responsible for making meaning out of our lives and in this world. And so to JFNA, to those who would divide the Jewish community or exclude members of the Jewish community because of a specific belief or lack of it, I remind them, not Amcha, but Amenu, our people, not yours. Whatever our beliefs, we can be sure only of our own efforts. It is not yours or his or mine, it is us and ours. It is Amenu, it is us. So I'd like to call up Elise Rockler, our final reader, as we start to have thoughts, more thoughts. It says thoughts on a new life and a new year, but what have we been doing this whole time but having thoughts? I know, the thought is, how many pages are left in the Machzor? That life is both fleeting and uncertain is a truth that presses upon the mind with special force as the old year ends and the new begins. Time speeds on, and we go with it. And though we have seen the year close, we can never be sure of seeing the end of the new. Since life is so fleeting and frail, we must begin the serious use of it at once, and begin it by entering upon the task of self-examination and self-ennoblement, which is its essential preliminary. A new year, say the rabbis, should inaugurate new life. So we are on the middle of page 14 toward the bottom for the song When I'm Gone, which is number 7 in the hymnal section behind the tab. On the bottom of page 14, let us consider the limited time we have on earth and use it wisely. Let us create value in each of our days. May we use diligence with foresight our span of time.
May we cherish and steward the best legacies of generations past, and through our own deeds contribute to generations present and future.
Generation upon generation, door by door, may we cultivate the virtues that shine forth the highest qualities of our shared humanity and elevate the human experience.
There are those who now look back in complacency and indifference, who accept the fruits of the long journey, but ignore the bitter cost of liberation and its lessons in tenacity and endurance. They are the strangers, and the road passes them by. There are others who look back in gratitude and humility, who remember that few present beings have been won without the sacrifices of the past, who continually reevaluate the spiritual and cultural treasures that the travail of the journey has produced. These are the true heirs of the generations, and for them the long and agonizing journey has been worthwhile.
That comes from a really long book, by the way, and that's what the style is like for the whole book. Just a history of Jewish thought. It's a tough read. We've reached our mourner's Kaddish, and before we join together to read it, I'd like you to bring to mind those who are ailing today and to take a brief moment to express our hopes for refuah shlema, complete healing of body and of spirit. As well, we take a moment to support those who are in the traditional periods of mourning within the Jewish tradition. So if you have lost someone in the last 7 days and are willing and able to do so, please stand up. If you have lost someone in the last 30 days and are willing and able to do so, please stand up. If you have lost someone in the last year and are willing and able to do so, please stand up. As we now remember our loved ones and so many others who have died, let us recite together responsively an affirmation of our dedication, our Kaddish to life and its improvement. Support those in the act of mourning, and please rise if you are able. And together on page 15, let us recall each person of blessed memory in all their humanity, with all their strengths and limitations. Let us honor and learn much from the best and the legacies of our loved ones past, for the sake of all those who now live, and for the sake of all those who will yet come to live in this world. Thus, let us stretch ourselves to reach for greatness, and let us dedicate ourselves in the name of the living multitudes of this world. Nitkadel v'nitkadesh b'shem rubuei hachayim ba'olam hazeh. May it be our heart's desire to work for healing and equity, for freedom and peace, to cultivate these in our lives and in our days, and in the lives of everyone in the world, swiftly and soon. Tehei masat libenu lif'ol l'ma'an refuat tzedek, chirut v'shalom, l'gadel otam b'chayenu uvyamenu uv'chaye kulam ba'olam, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'hava nomar, Amen. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Let us bless and praise the memories of our loved ones with our actions. Nivarech unashabeach otam. Let us remember them in their glory and at their heights. Nizkor otam betiferet uveromamut shelahem. May we carry on the best elements of their lives with splendor. Nisa behadar. May we ascend in the shining examples of their praiseworthy deeds. Na'aleh b'divrehem l'halel. Even as we speak, we know that the value of each life exceeds all that can be expressed in blessings or in songs, in praises or in words of consolation. Kodesh HaNefesh, Olem Min Kol, Brachot O Shirim, Shevachim O Nechamot. You may be seated. And it is traditional to conclude Mourner's Kaddish with a song wishing for peace. And our song is Na'aseh Shalom, and you can find the music for it on page 8. Number 8 in your hymnal. Don't turn to page 8, you'll get all lost. Together, let us make peace in the world. Peace is our responsibility and the responsibility of all the Jewish people, all of Yisrael, and the responsibility of all peoples in the world. Let there be peace for us all. Let us reach out to one another to help bring peace to those in grief and strife. Let us care for each other wherever someone suffers loss.
We all need community as we encounter life's peaks and chasms. Let us make our congregation a sanctuary of humanity, a place to feel our pain and our joy together, a place to plumb the depths of our souls and heal our wounds together, a spiritual home where we share our poetry and songs, our visions and labors of love.
For those who mourn, let us offer you an oasis of peace in this caring community. For the ones we mourn, let us find lessons and inspirations in their legacies. Let us remember righteous actions for a blessing. Nizkor tzedakah livracha. Together we say, Amen. So we're on the top of page 18, a blessing for children. It is customary, if you have one of your children nearby, it is customary to reach out and touch a child. Good luck. Right? I see Marina's grabbed them both. So we're on page 18. Just as we remember our loved ones past and celebrate the best in the lives they lead, so too do we have hope for our children and all who will yet be born into this world. We bless you and watch over you with our love, and we hope that your learning and good deeds bring you joy and long life. May you help others and be an example to all, just as others help you and show you the paths of goodness. May the best within you shine forth with compassion, and may you always lift up your face to meet others in peace. As we hope for peace in the world, we must commit ourselves to working for peace. While force may sometimes be necessary to defend ourselves, we also know that violence and war are not able to solve humanity's problems, as they themselves are part of our moral failings. Let us renew in our deeds the words of the ancient Hebrew prophets Isaiah and Micah, who taught that nation shall not raise up sword against nation, neither shall they any more learn war. A song of peace written after the Six-Day War in 1967 imagined a better year ahead in which the sounds of birds singing and children playing replace the din of war. Please now join in singing that song of peace, Hashanah Haba'ah, which is number 9 in your hymnal section.
Soon a day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will play without wondering whether on that day dark new clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there will be if we share, if we care, you and me.
As we approach the conclusion of our ceremony, it says to conclude our ceremony, and then there's like 3 pages. To conclude our ceremony, we will now drink a toast to the new year. We will not be breaking bread together or sharing apples and honey, because that's how COVID goes. And you will notice there's no challah or apples and honey up front here either. So we're changing things a bit. Why have all these pages in the book, other than we don't want to reprint the pages and all that? We did the other stuff on the other years, and this year is different, and we're taking precautions for COVID. And round challah and apples and honey are Rosh Hashanah symbols, so maybe we could have them up here anyway, even if no one gets to have any, which didn't seem especially fair to me. But beyond that, there's a reason challah and wine ended up on the bima in the first place. Don't get excited, bima is just a word for stage. You don't have to have an ark and a Torah and all that other stuff. We live in a time where travelers stay in hotels or motels or Airbnb or whatever the other service is that does that same kind of thing, or with relatives. We don't live in a time when travelers tend to stay in synagogues in order to be close to a synagogue on Shabbat. 200 years ago, different thing. People who stayed overnight in a synagogue for Shabbat would often take their Saturday lunch at the synagogue after morning Shabbat services. And eventually more and more people sort of stuck around for the food, because why wouldn't you? And that meant there was a problem for everyone if you're working in the framework of traditional Jewish law, because you know how this goes. We're done with the service, there's food in the back, and everybody runs for it. Wait, you all sit in your seats waiting for somebody else to go? That meant, in Jewish law, that there's a problem of everyone in the congregation running to the back, and how do you make sure that all of the appropriate blessings has been said for the food that's back there? There's a whole theology of blessing in Jewish law. We're not going to get into it, but missing or messing up the blessings is a big problem. The solution was for wine and challah to come up to the front, for everybody to have a little bit, and for whoever was leading the services to say the blessings, and that way everybody was covered, and you don't have to worry about people doing the right thing in the mad dash to the back of the room. By virtue of being the Shaliach Tzibor, the representative of the community, with a minimal amount of wine shared by those pleasant, the blessings, they covered everybody, but we're not going to have that stuff. And so it makes little sense to recite blessings for challah and apples and honey that nobody can have. That leaves the wine, which has a second function because wine is used as part of Kiddush, blessing and setting apart the specific holiday. Kiddush doesn't depend on sharing food, and so today we preserve the Kiddush and wine aspect while having to skip over the other parts. And so we are on page 19 at the top. Wine, symbol of pleasure and sorrow, symbol of passion and the blood of life, symbol of plenty and of excess. Let us bless our lives and the new year by fostering community, by sharing our joy, our spirit, and our bounty, by inviting visitors to join us, by welcoming the stranger, by caring for those in need. Let us celebrate wine as a symbol of all that is good in the world. Let us drink a toast to the fruit of the vine, to life. Nivarech et borei pri hagafen. Let us bless those who create the fruit of the vine. And I'm going to get corrected on my vocabulary by the Israelis when I step down. Somebody laughed because they know why. These are the things you don't want to hang around in humanistic rabbi meetings for. What word do we use for these blessings? We're very close to the end of the service. You can see there's 2 pages left, which means we've reached everybody's favorite part. You know we don't have food, so it's not that, right? What is everybody's favorite part of the service? Announcements. It's announcements. The work of many, many of our members must be recognized because volunteering doesn't accurately describe the role they play. A congregation is a community, and one doesn't volunteer to take care of their community as much as they participate and support in it. Whatever you call it today, it couldn't happen without them, and they deserve our tremendous gratitude. Member volunteers, which is the wrong word, include Mimi Brody, Will David, Marty David, Barbara Francisco, Michael Friedman, Shoshana Gitlin, Rachel Hanadari, Mark Maurer, Daniel Maurer, Harriet Peck, Tricia Meeks Schnell, Jack Schwartz, Nadine Wetstein, Mike Zamor, and Miriam Markowitz. Our speaker, who deserves extra congratulations, is David Abramson. Today's choir was Laura Ariovich, Keith Campbell-Rosen, Greg Greisa, Joy Markowitz, Joanna Pratt, and Harry Appleman. Our readers were Joey Barr, Tatiana Barr, Liz Pomper, and Elise Rockler. And Cedar Lane staff deserve thanks: Claire J. Cox, Lizzie Person, Michael McRickard, Jose Morant, and Rufo Nasal. And, as always, our administrator, Tara Newhouse, deserves many thanks for making sure that the clocks run on time. I don't know that she makes the clocks run on time, but the trains, perhaps, she makes run on time. Metaphors are bad today. I don't know what to tell you. Applause for them. We have events coming up. We have an event this afternoon, Tashlich, where we go and we're not supposed to feed bread to them anymore, right? Because the ducks are around and the fish are around. So here's the problem. You're supposed to kind of aim for the fish during Tashlich, but the ducks eat the bread and the bread's bad for the ducks. So seeds, right? Bird seed is recommended, or split grapes, which I have to tell you, you're not feeding the fish that way. It's a whole thing. There's a verse from the book of Jonah: I'll toss my sins into the water for the fish to consume, and then fish don't eat grapes, and I don't know. It's a new world. I don't know. In any event, there are other Tashlich traditions, including emptying the fuzz out of your pockets, just walking into the ocean in your clothes. I don't really recommend that. But there's things you can do. But we're having Tashlich this afternoon at 3 o'clock. It will be led by longtime Machar member David Barron, symbolically casting away all the bad stuff from this year. Those attending, it's at Meadow Ridge Park. Is that the right one? I don't remember the park's name. Meadowbrook Park? Is that right? Okay, Meadowbrook Park. Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up from the back of the room. Meadowbrook Park. So there's a pavilion near the parking lot. Walk a short distance to a bridge where there's water flowing underneath Rock Creek, and you can perform Tashlich. I guess no bread? I don't know. I'm getting very confused by this. After that, Kol Nidre and Yom Kippur services will be here and online on October 4th and October 5th. There's still in-person seating available for Kol Nidre if you're interested in coming to that. We are unfortunately still in waitlist-only status for attendance on Yom Kippur Day in person, so those of you who are online, keep checking. After that, on the 9th, our Jewish Cultural School will have a Sukkot program. We're still ironing out the details of the location. It will not be at the Milton Gottesman School, but it will be a JCS day. So if you have JCS students, please come. Even if you don't have JCS students, I guess you could come. Sukkot's fun. Lulav, etrog, trying to figure out how to make a sukkah without the sukkah stuff. And the following week will be an adult education program online. So we have things coming up in the next few weeks for everybody to do and to participate in. If you're new and I don't know you, please let me know. I'm happy to meet you. We can do masks off outside. We can do masks on inside. It's up to you. I'll be putting this back on when we're done. Just to say hello, if I haven't seen you in a while and you are a Machar person, I'd also like to say hello. If you don't have time for any of this nonsense, but you still want to yell at me, rabbi@machar.org. You'll get me. If you type in all caps, it's basically like yelling at me. It works. I will feel appropriately chastened. And when I reply, there's a link at the bottom and you can actually book an appointment. And you get a Zoom link and everything. Technology is very cool sometimes. Before our final song, I'd like to ask Mike Zamor and Miriam Markowitz to come up to blow shofar again. And what I'll ask them to do is come up and grab a microphone. The choreography is interesting. We're on the middle of page 20. Let us now listen to the voice of the shofar, Hava Nishma Kol Shofar. Like a banner lifted high, it hearkens all the world to action for peace and freedom and compassion. Together, blow the shofar, proclaim our search for understanding and healing. Tekiah. Blow the shofar, proclaim our struggle for equity and freedom. Shivarim. Blow the shofar, proclaim our commitment to peace and the planet. Teruah. May the shofar, which assembled ancient Israel in expectation of its challenges, fears, and dreams, awaken each of us and draw us together to face our own in the coming year. May we hear the shofar as our call to action. Tekiah Gedolah. We're getting close to our final song, and if you've been with us before, you know the song, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka. Do you know where the melody is from? This is one of those moments of deep continuity that we don't always talk about. That melody is hundreds of years old. It is the typical melody used in Ashkenazi synagogues on Rosh Hashanah Eve for almost all of the liturgy, except for some specific songs. We use it to mark the close of our Rosh Hashanah morning services, wishing each other a sweet and good year. And so we are on the middle of page 21. We have come together here today as the Jewish New Year begins to reconnect with each other and the extended family that is the Jewish people. We have celebrated progressive values and teachings which help us guide our lives and which we treasure as our heritage. We reflect on the imperative to improve ourselves and our community, our culture and our world. We are the stewards of a great legacy and the trailblazers of a vital, evolving civilization. We reflect on all that for which we feel grateful in life and look forward to the new year. May we respond with courage, determination, and urgency to life's challenges and its promise. May our deeds help make the new year good and sweet, and we will be led by the choir in singing L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, which is number 10 in the hymnal section.
L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, L'Shana L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka, L'Shana Tova U'Metuka.
Shana Tova, Happy New Year, Good Yor, Good Yontif, for those who are into Good Yontif. I almost said Shabbat Shalom, because that's what I'm so used to, but Shabbat's technically the next holiday, but we have Tashlich, so hopefully some of you will be interested in Tashlich. Thanks everybody for coming, and it feels so anticlimactic to tell you there's no food. I don't know what to do here. Oh, there is food. Okay. So new, there's food. I was wrong. Go have some food. Thank you to everybody who volunteered for our program today. Thank you to those attending online as well.